Hello, everybody. I'm Roy Firestone, and this is Up Close Classic. Tonight, a look back at one of the NFL's most storied franchises, the Baltimore Colts. In their 30-year history, they won 3 NFL championships, a Super Bowl, and a game that many consider the greatest ever played. We take a look back at their leader, the man who was named the greatest player in the first 50 years of professional football, the incomparable Johnny Unitas.
There is nothing that I've found in the past, 25 years I've been out, or 20 years I've been out, I guess, that can relate to the excitement and the joy that you had playing football. What am I going to do on Sunday? The first so many years I've been going to the ball games. That's the whole thing. On the week, if we won a ball game on Sunday, everybody talked about the game from Monday through Thursday, and then they got ready for the next week. If you lost the game, then it was nasty all during the week. No one talked much about anything.
The game, to me, was, fun. I enjoyed it, and we worked hard at it, and if you lose, then you lose. I mean, it's not that you don't have any feeling about losing, because I hate to lose. If we lost the ball game, and guaranteed I'm going to give you 110% of my efforts. Mm-hmm. I've never been ashamed of that. Mm-hmm. And I think if we win it, and I'll give you 110% effort there too.
Let me ask you a question that you may not be able to answer because you may not be as objective as some people might want. Why Johnny Unitas with the 2 minutes was the best 2-minute quarterback ever, maybe, in professional football? Boom, 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 down the field. You always seem to be able to pick apart a defense, especially in 2 minutes.
Well, we worked at it, for one thing. I mean, we went to every practices during the week. We always took like 15 minutes of every practice in the evening to work on a 2-minute offense. Plus the fact that I never could understand defensive coaches, or even coaches, period, who go into a ball game, who play a team to a standstill, right, for 28 minutes in the first half, and then elect to go into a 2-minute type defense and give up certain things.
The so-called prevent defense.
Yeah. I mean, that's, to me, is asinine. I said, if I'm beating you to death with this type of defense, then why shouldn't I continue to do that?
John was a leader in every sense of, he would walk into the huddle, he took total command. In the last 2 minutes, he would say, we're going to win. I believed it. Yeah. And I believe everyone on the team believed we were going to win. Mm. We had 80 yards to go. We didn't know how we were going to do it, but we knew we were going to win.
Not only could he do it, he knew each one of us as individuals. In other words, I remember he threw me a little pop pass, I caught it, picked up the first down, came back. The next time he threw me the same pass, I dropped it. 60,000 fans let me know that they didn't appreciate me dropping that ball right in my hands. They were throwing things at my wife and kids, calling me Butterfingers. Unitas called a timeout. He go right back in the huddle and said, same play, silence the crowd. I went 50 yards for a touchdown.
When Johnny Unitas threw a football, it told you something. What did it tell you?
Well, if John threw the ball to you and it was in your stomach, he was telling you you're in trouble, catch the ball and go down. If John threw you the ball and it was way out in front of you, it meant run under, you're wide open, catch it, and go. If John threw it out in front of you, it meant either dive and catch it or knock it down. So you always knew what was happening. The only problem is when another quarterback came in, when Earl Morrall first came to the Colts, he lobbed me a pass. I thought I was wide open. I got hit so hard my teeth hurt.
Now, tell me about cadences, Johnny Unitas' cadence. He had a deliberate, you can actually remember, you can actually do an impression of what it sounded like.
Well, John Unitas' cadence was a rhythmatic.
Like?
It was ready, set, hop 1, hop 2, hop 3.
Right.
And so you could get off on the count. I could get off so quick to block Deacon Jones, because it was so rhythmatic.
What would Johnny Unitas be worth right now?
Probably $10 million a year.
$10 million a year?
Yeah.
Would you ask for it?
Sure.
You think you'd get it?
Oh, we'd get somewhere close to it.
Welcome back to Up Close Classic and our special look at the Baltimore Colts. Johnny Unitas played in hundreds of games during his 17-year career with the Colts, but he and his teams will be forever remembered for 2 games in particular.
Well, let's go back to '58 first, because so much has been said and written that it was the greatest game ever played. In retrospect now, almost 30 years later, how do you view it?
Well, let's put it in proper perspective. The game itself was just a ho-hum game. It was. when you look at the first 56 minutes of it, it was back and forth, seesaw back and forth. We actually should have blown New York off the field. And we probably would have had we scored down in that one particular frozen spot of the area, the end zone down. They came back, and we had to make a comeback going down to tie the game up. Up to that point, it was just back and forth. And the most important phase of the game was the last minute and a half or 2 minutes.
They gave you 2 minutes from your own 14-yard line.
Right, and we were able to march down the field and score the field goal. And we came back, and after they didn't make the first down, we came back and we went 85 yards for the touchdown. That game was televised to more homes than any other sporting event ever, because television was now coming into being.
It's 1969, the Colts in the Super Bowl. It was obviously a situation where the Colts were expected to win, but not just win big. The Jets, who were they? You lose. It was a bitter defeat. You always seem to have an equilibrium about you where you didn't take things too hard, but obviously it hurt a lot of Colts to lose that way.
Well, I think sure it did. It was an overtime, well, not overtime, but it was Super Bowl. It was the first time ever the American Football League team came in there to beat the National Football League team. It was a big game. And the thing was, we had every opportunity there was to win it. We had Tommy Mitchell was in the end zone. Earl hit him with a pass. It hit his shoulder pads. It bounces up in the air, and they intercept it. And we have Jimmy Orr standing down the end zone by himself trying to get Earl's attention, and he doesn't throw it to them. And that's the #1 receiver on that particular pass. And no one to this day understands why.
I think there was something funky about the game. Come on.
Roy, you're not going to get me into that. I'm not going to say that. But it's a lot of things that I've thought about that game, and I've revisited the game a lot. You know, even when I didn't want to, when I went to sleep at night. And you tell me that we had just set a record defensively for the least amount of points. And they come in and beat us like that. We inside the 25 times in the first half and come away with no points. You know, a whole lot of things start to run through my head. And I didn't understand it.
Bubba Smith, your teammate, said there might have been some business on in that game. You don't buy that either, do you?
Well, Bubba finds it hard to walk straight and chew gum at the same time. So what are you going to do?
I believe that it was just a clear case of being overconfident. We announced the victory party Wednesday before the game, and we cut up the winner's share at pregame meeting.
If that is true, let's assume it is, how would you have reacted if you heard that?
Well, we did announce that there would be a party, and we were hoping that it was going to be a victory party. I mean, you had to make plans. Carroll Rosenblum was going to have this big party at his house at Golden Beach. As far as cutting up the players' share, I'm not aware of that going on. And I think John may have stretched that a little bit. But the thing that I tried to stress to the team all week long was that the Jets certainly were a very good football team with an excellent coach in Weeb Eubank, a quarterback that had been with them 4 years. We had a quarterback, Earl Morrill, that was with us for 4 months, just coming to us from the Giants. And so you could see where the Jets were a very capable football team. Of course, when Namath announced that they were going to win, that should have fired us up more. And it didn't, and we had a lot of things happen to us in that ball game where we didn't capitalize on opportunities, and those usually come back to haunt you. We had people open early in the ball game and didn't hit them, and then the Jets just control the football on us and won the game.
Do you think even for all the greatness and all the Super Bowl championships and all of it, it's still a kind of sore spot for you, though?
Oh, yeah, no question
about it. Still
can't
let go of it.
Especially when I'm constantly reminded of it.
By some dumb reporters, too.
But, it happened, and it was, that helped bring the leagues together. I look at it from a positive standpoint. It was embarrassing. It destroyed my relationship with Carroll Rosenblum. And but, the positive was I ended up in Miami, which hasn't been bad.
I'm Roy Firestone, and you're watching a special up-close classic look at the Baltimore Colts. They were winners, but the winning didn't always come easily. They had to fight to get to the top, and sometimes the fighting began in their own locker room. I'm going to ask you to tell a story that you never told before. We'll probably get in trouble here, but I think we can do this in a good way. But you almost quit before it ever began with Don Shula because he berated you.
No, he didn't really berate me. He motivated me. So you got to understand that Don Shula knew how to motivate me. The story I want to tell you is that when I first came back from the college All-Star game, I met with Don Shula and he asked me what were my goals, and I told him to be your starting tight end. He says, then you got to beat out the other 5 guys that's been here in camp if you want to be #1. I thought he meant beat him up. So I proceeded to beat him up. I knew I was #1 before Don Shula because Shula was at the other end of the field and he says, send me a tight end. And all 5 said, he called you, John. You ought to go down the other end.
Did you ever want to go at it with Shula? Did you ever want to throw a punch at him? Tell the truth.
No, I would never throw a punch at him.
You did too. The two of you almost went at it one time, and this was the first day. He was a rookie coach, 1963, and you were ready to quit, right? Tell the folks what happened. You could tell this. It's years later. Come on, 25, 35 years later.
No, only thing he did, he said some things that I didn't appreciate.
Because your father was a minister.
Oh, yeah, and so we talked about it, and we resolved it, and he's been my best friend ever since.
He apologized, didn't he?
Well, yeah, because, I mean, he used some language that I wasn't accustomed to, and he said that he apologized and demanded that I apologize for what I had said, and we apologized, and he's the best coach I've ever had. And I tell you, I could have played 20 years, and if he comes back as a head coach, I'll come back as a tight end.
I think a player respects you if you're honest with him, and your discipline is an honest discipline. If there's anything that's just contrived, they sense that. And if you get into the cussing and swearing, and there have been times I've lost my cool, especially early in my coaching career with players, but lately I've been able to handle it a lot better. There are still times I go off the handle and say things that later on I'm sorry that I've said. But the players really are looking for discipline, and they're looking for leadership. And if it's done in an honest way, I think they accept that. But if it's excessive, I think that we're wrong in abusing a player if it's too excessive.
John, there were so many theories towards the end of your career with the Colts before you went on to San Diego that you were somewhat bitter or angry with management and that you had a feud with Don Shula. Any of that true? Any of that fair?
I never had a real problem or a feud with Don Shula whatsoever. He didn't like some of the things that I did.
What do you think he
or
didn't
said?
like?
And hey, I didn't like some of the things that he says, and he told me he would tell me, and I'd tell him.
What do you think he didn't like about what you did?
Well, he would send in the field goal team, and I'd wave him off.
Well, that's going to show him up. He is the coach, John.
That's right. But I had more confidence in my ability as to make the first down or the touchdown than I did the field goal kicker.
What did you not necessarily like about what he did?
Well, Donald was very outspoken. He was a holler and a screamer, and I don't like people who holler and scream constantly.
I think in my early years, I was pretty uptight. As I mentioned, wore my emotions on my sleeve, and I didn't hesitate to let people know exactly how I felt. I think that one of the things that I've learned through the years is how to better control my emotions, and I think it's helped me stay in the game as long as I've stayed in it as a head coach. But in the early years, there were some tough times, and there were times where Unitas had this great confidence in himself that he wanted to go for it. He wanted to go for it all the time, and that made it all the tougher when you're dealing with a quarterback of Unitas's ability and his past performance to make sure that you're on the right page with him. And as it turned out, we won a few games in Baltimore, and things did work.
The Baltimore Colts in the early days were a team comprised of larger-than-life characters, guys who played the game like they lived life to the fullest. Real men played in your time, right?
I don't know about that. They take real men, men that play today. I don't know. I made the team in 1950, the Baltimore Colts, because they didn't have enough equipment to go around. And a guy said to me, if you wait and all these guys go home or get cut, we'll make the team. That's why I made the team.
Well, listen to the team you made. The Colts in 1950. They folded. They didn't even stay around as a franchise. The team disbanded. They quit on you.
You're right. We got all drafted by different teams. And 3 of us went to the New York Yanks. Then the whole team went to Dallas.
Oh, that must have been a lot of laughs.
Oh, man, you know how we used to
The
practice?
Dallas Texans?
Oh, yeah, we had a great football team.
Yeah.
We used to try to catch the Carp up in Hershey, Pennsylvania. That was a big thing. It was a joke. I mean...
what was your record?
1-11, maybe 3-9 or something like that. I mean, we played the Rams twice, and they beat us a total of 147 points. How bad can you get?
Listen to this. For the first 36 games in the great career of Art Donovan, your teams were 3-31-2.
Right.
3-31-2. Well, that
Well,
must
we were
have been...
building character, Roy. That's all I can say. I don't know anything else.
You gave up a total of 1,272 points in those games.
It was terrible. I mean, you know, we knew we were going to lose. The idea was we were going to have a party after the game. Of course, we were going to lose anyhow.
What'd you get? What'd you get a year? What was your top
my
salary?
first year, I got $4,500. And
You're kidding me.
$4,500. And we had a guy named Sisto Averno, played both ways, and they gave him $4,000. And the coach said, "What's wrong, Sisto?" He said, "My left shoulder hurts me." He said, "Only block with your right." I'm telling you. We didn't have any whirlpools. We had nothing. We had a bathtub with a suction pump.
What did your times have? You didn't have the money. You might have had the laughs. You had friendship.
That's right. We had a great bunch of guys. And in Baltimore today, there's about 8 of us meet once every 2 months, and we have dinner, and the stories get better, and the lies get bigger. And it's a wonderful, wonderful way, really.
Baltimore. Give me a paragraph. The city, the people, the time.
I love it. They loved us. There'll never be another love affair like the old Colts.
They got the Ravens.
Well, yeah, but, you know, that's all well and good. But we were so bad, so lousy. And then all of a sudden, one day we woke up, and we were pretty good.
You, it was reported, wanted your name burned out of the record books. Is that true? Did you want to not be associated with the Colts anymore?
What it was is that they are using the statistics and everything else that I was able to accomplish in Baltimore in an Indianapolis yearbook or press guide.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they weren't accomplished in Indianapolis. They were accomplished in Baltimore.
I usually came in fairly early and got taped, and would just maybe go over some other stuff in my mind, and then read the paper for a while, and then go and take a nap.
A lot of chatter in this place?
Oh yeah.
Who were the big talkers? Mackey?
No, Mackey didn't talk much.
Each player was superstitious and had a ritual that they went through. Gino Marchetti, he never went to the stadium with the team. He took a cab and he got there early because he would smoke a cigarette and walk from one end to the other, and he would put it out. And we knew if he had smoked and he had 7 butts that he was ready to play. So when we came in, we'd count cigarettes.
Wow.
Then we had, you had Jim Parker. When he put
Big
pads
number
on,
77.
oh
one of
yeah.
the greatest tackles in the history of the...
When he put his pads on and he did this, you knew he was ready. Then you looked at Raymond Barry, and Raymond Barry was over there, and he had strips of tape, and he was designing plays, and he was putting them on his thigh pads. And I always figured if I ever played against him, I'd rip those tape off so he wouldn't know what to do. Okay? And then you had a Lenny Lyles, who put on his pads and banged his head against the wall saying, "My pads are set." And you had John Unitas sitting over there just looking around the room, shaking his head, saying, "Oh, we got a ship of fools here." And then we had Jimmy Orr, who went to the bathroom, and when he came out and did that, it meant we were ready to play and win. He had to drink a Cuddy Sour.
One word, just fill it in. Football.
Greatest thing ever happened to me. The greatest thing ever happened to me, and the worst thing ever happened to me, is when they called me and they told me my mother died. And then that's the worst. And the next thing is when I retired, and I laid my head down on the pillow that night in my house, and said, tomorrow morning, I'm never going to wake up and play football again. And this is going back to when I was 6 years old, playing football on the cinder field in PS8 in the Bronx. That's it.
And when you realized you weren't going to do it again, it took something out of your life.
No. One time around, Roy, is the greatest. The second time wouldn't be as much fun, because I'd know what was going on.
Ted Williams said, all I really wanted out of my career is for when people see me walking down the street, they say, there goes the best hitter who ever lived. What did you want out of your career?
I wanted to be the best player in the game.
Were you?
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed this edition of Up Close Classic. I'm Roy Firestone. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Good night.